Welcome back. It's time for Data Point. And we begin by looking at what the Kenya Revenue Authority has been able to achieve so far, because the first quarter, which is July to September 2023, they were able to collect 586.9 billion shillings. This is against a target of 665 billion shillings, missing the target by about 12%, which is 79 billion shillings. It is important to note, however, that the same period, meaning July to September 2022, the Kenya Revenue Authority was able to collect 541.6 billion shillings. So there's a bit of growth of about 45 billion shillings if you have to compare the 2 years. Now, beyond that, what you know is that the taxes, this is the classification. Domestic taxes, the target was to reach 431.2 billion shillings. The Kenya Revenue Authority was able to attain some 389 billion shillings, missing the target by 41.7 billion shillings. For the customs taxes, you're talking about a target of 233.4 billion shillings, but they were able to attain 196.1 billion shillings, of course missing the target by some 37.3 billion shillings, and that gives a total of 79 billion shillings. So let's try and trace where the challenge is. Of course, if you have to begin by the Customs and Border Control, basically the charges on goods that are coming into the country, the taxes, if you're talking about the oil taxes, the target was 84.6 billion shillings, but what they were able to achieve was 77.7 billion shillings. If you had to compare the same period last year, the taxes were 78.5 billion shillings. So if you had to compare those 2 years, then there's a decline of just below 1 billion shillings. For the non-oil taxes, we're talking about a target of 148 billion shillings. The actual was 124. If you had to look at that, it's a miss by about 24 billion shillings, 24.4 billion shillings. The previous year, the same period, it was 123 billion shillings. What they were able to achieve, you can see it remains almost the same, because there's only a growth of about 1.4 billion shillings. Beyond that, what we know is that according to the domestic taxes, these are talking about the pay as you earn from salaries. The target was 142 billion shillings, but the Kenya Revenue Authority collected 126 billion shillings. But if you had to compare with the same period last year, then there's a growth of about 13 billion shillings, because in 2022 it was at 113.7. For value-added tax, remember there has been a contentious discussion about the VAT, especially affecting fuel. So what happened? The target was 84 billion shillings, but the KRA was not able to meet that. It missed it by about 7 billion shillings, but it's a growth if you had to compare with the previous year, which was 63.5, crossing over by more than 14 billion shillings. Then for the corporation, this is the taxes that are paid by companies. The target was 89.2 billion shillings, but they attained 69.5, and it's actually a decline compared to the previous year, the same period, which was 71 billion shillings. Well, it's just a little, just about 600 or thereabout million shillings. That would be the gap. Then if you have to talk about the domestic taxes, these are areas that have surpassed the target. For instance, the withholding taxes, the target was 44.9 billion shillings. They were able to achieve 48.9 billion shillings. Then for excise taxes, again, the target was 19.9. They surpassed the target slightly to hit 20.4 billion shillings. For the excise tax on airtime, the target was 8.2 billion shillings. They actually achieved 9.1 billion shillings, which is higher than the target. But again, you can see what happened in the previous year. If you had to compare that with the Q1 reality, looking at what has been happening the past 3 months or between July and September, you realize that the Kenya USD rate has been changing, because the previous year, 2022, the same period, it was at 119, an average of 119.4 shillings. It is now at 144.05, and that's a growth or an increment of 20.6%. If you were to look at the import values, the country imported up to 661 billion worth of goods. In the same period in 2022, that has gone down slightly to 655.9 billion shillings. Does that signal reducing demand for goods? Because that's a 0.8% reduction. Beyond that is that we know that there has been a reduction in the consumption when it comes to petroleum products. For instance, diesel consumption reduced from 1.15 million metric tons, same period in 2022, to now settle at 1.05 million, which is a reduction of about 56,000 metric tons. Petrol consumption has also declined by 28,000 metric tons. This may explain a bit of what you're seeing happening to the revenues of taxes collected from petroleum products. Now, beyond that is that more realities is that the private sector has been reported to be changing and having some low business perceptions. There is cost pressures, of course, because of cost of doing business. There is a drop in customer demand because of what is happening to disposable incomes, as well as reduced manufacturing output because of all these factors put into consideration. Then, beyond that, which is something that we needed to look at, which is about the targets for the next financial, the next quarter, that is quarter 2 of the financial year. The KRA is hoping to hit some 685 billion shillings in terms of the target, but of course that would mean some 28.8% growth. At the moment, for the quarter 1, the growth was up to 8.4%. So how will KRA be in a position to hit 28.8% growth of revenues, while currently they've only been able to manage some 8.4%? And that is Data Point this week.